It's struggling with the connection today, I think. Or we might already be live. That's probably the thing. Good morning, good evening, and good afternoon, lovely people. I would love to welcome you to yet another episode of Unsilenced Grief. And
Mm,
today I've got the lovely Katie Rizzo right next to me. And we talk about a topic today that a lot of people actually rather want to avoid. So I'm always super grateful when somebody steps up and says, let's talk about the deep and heavy topics, the one that most people want to avoid. And when you talk about grief, there are often quite heavy topics in there anyway. So people don't really tend to go deeper and heavier. They rather want to um, have lightness and healing and happiness. And this is what I'm all about. So I understand it. But I love when we have these conversations because I feel when we talk about these things, then lightness and healing and happiness can come in. So without further ado, I'm so happy that you're here today to talk about these topics, Katie. Please do us the honor
thank you.
and introduce yourself to our audience. Welcome.
Hi, thanks. I'm glad to be here. So, as you said, my name's Katie Rizzo, and I've written a book about grief because we lost our 25-year-old son to addiction. And I wanted to, first of all, just put it out in the world because it felt like it was unimaginable. And also, I have met so many people who have gone through it and are really battling with telling others not to saying what their child died of, or not even saying that their child had passed away. And
Yeah,
yeah, so that's kind of a little bit about me.
yeah. I am on the edge of my seat to get into this topic. However, I would love to, for our audience sake, always give them the chance to actually connect to your story, to who you are. Can you tell us a little bit about the life before your son passed away? Tell us a little bit about your family, your son, yeah, how was life before
I'd love
him?
to.
Mm.
So Nicholas is one of three boys. He's the oldest. I was lucky enough to be a stay-at-home mom for a little while, and then I was a high school science teacher. I taught AP Bio and Honors Anatomy. Nicholas took both of those by choice
Yeah,
from
well,
me. Yeah,
hmm
he's
I
he's
love it.
crazy. He was a kid who loved being in his body. He spent a lot of time, jumping on the trampoline, swimming. He got into sports really early. He loved soccer. So, by the time he was in high school, he was a freshman. He made varsity team. Uh, he was really shy, but he found like a way to be not shy on the
Mm.
pitch. He had a lot of injuries from soccer, and with each injury, he would get prescribed opioids. And I think, I'm not sure, but I feel like that was the beginning of
Mm.
his love of opioids. Um, and he went away to college. He got a D2 college scholarship.
Mm.
And
Wow.
during that time, he started smoking pot. And I think he got really into pills, unfortunately. Um, he was kind of a kid who, I don't think he realized what he had. Probably like everyone in the world, right? You always think, you don't see yourself as how other people see you. He
Yeah.
he got prom king, and he was
Mm.
really shy and embarrassed to do that. And he was like, "Oh, I only got it because you're a teacher at the school or whatever." So I think he was like most kids, kind of insecure and never really sure of himself. And I think he
Mhm.
started doing um, opioids and benzodiazepines, so Xanax, to kind of calm
Mhm.
himself. And I think it got really out of hand.
Well, in that alone are already so many questions or comments that I would like to put in there because, I'm just thinking from his perspective, I can so understand where his thinking was in terms of I only got the prime king because you're a teacher there. And yet I think every one of us knows one teacher's kid that nobody liked, so I don't think it had anything to do with that.
Yeah.
Really, it's like you either are a likable person or you're not. I don't think it has anything to do with your mom teaching at school or not, but I truly wish I could have said that to him. I'm not sure if it would have made a difference, but that is really something where you already see it just highlights that insecurity that it would have been there, or the feeling uncomfortable with being in a public. And both my sons have the same thing. They're both introverts, and I'm such an extrovert, and I really had to learn to accept that because I'm so out there and I'm speaking and
Yeah.
in public and all these things. I had to learn that too. But for a mom, for parents to accept that where they're at, what you mentioned is something that I want to highlight as well, because it is something that I feel people really need to pay more attention to. You said how people see us.
Mm.
And what you describe, I think it is easy for people to see the addiction and nothing else. And I am so grateful for this podcast and for many others where we can highlight the story behind it, the people behind it. This is what I'm really interested in, because as human beings, we're so easy and so quick to judge.
Yeah.
And I would like to know about the personality. You just shared a little bit about Nicholas. How was he with his brothers? They were quite close in age, right?
Yeah. So Nicholas was the oldest, but we
Mm.
had three boys.
Hmm.
Boom, boom, boom. They were just stair steps.
Yeah.
And there was a point in his addiction, and this kind of goes to how he saw himself, but
Mm.
he had a doctor who was prescribing, unbeknownst to us, opioids, and for 3 years. So it was just awful. And at one point, he had to go off of them, and he had swelling on the brain, and he was in ICU, and
Mm.
he didn't know who he was. And
Wow.
I said, do you know your name? And he's like, no, but I know I'm the big brother. And
Oh.
I feel it. I feel like deep down inside, that's who he really was. Like
Mm.
the three of them just kind of grew up with one another, and it was just the brothers Bazoo, as my husband used to call them. We live in Arizona, so it's really easy to go down to Mexico. It's just 4 hours away drive,
Mhm.
and we spent most of our summers just in the ocean. And my memory of Nicholas would be we had this big inner tube with a handle, and he would, that kid, even when he was 5, we'd put the other ones in, and he would just pull them around in the tide pools for hours and hours. And as they grew older, that's what they did. And
Yeah.
playing king of the mountain. So um the other two kind of idealized him, and I don't think even Nicholas noticed it. Nicholas played soccer, the
Mm.
other two played soccer. um and at Nicholas's funeral, I think both of them in their eulogies did a nice job of saying, how much they looked up to their big brother,
Mm.
and how much they wished he could be there to see people, and how much love there was for him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoa. Let's delve into the deep topic. The
Mm.
addiction, the shame, the how did you actually find out? When did you know that it was far gone, that it was really, that it was deep into it? Because for me, I can only imagine, like, as a mom, because I now parent an adult son. That's very new to me. He turned 18 this year. And suddenly you're faced with, they can make their own decisions medically and everything. And that comes with a few potentially rather scary decisions. And you said that for 3 years you didn't know that he had been subscribed
Yeah.
opioids. So when did you actually know? Because I can only imagine that for him, when Nicholas realized how far gone he was into the addiction, that there would have been shame for him to maybe wanting to hide that from you. If, like, if he's like most teenagers would be with their parents, they don't,
Yeah.
the parents are the last people they want to know because they fear the judgment or the I don't want to say punishment because that's not how I work, but I don't know how. I'll
But
let you
also,
tell the story.
I think he wanted us to see him a certain way, and he would
Of
always
course.
present that way, even when we're like, "You don't look like you're doing that great." I mean,
Mm,
he really wanted to be successful, and
mm,
he wanted to. So back to when I knew, I don't know, in high school there was times where we found that he and his friends were smoking pot, and we thought, oh, that's normal. But I think
mm,
when he got to college, he was smoking enough pot that it was literally a gateway drug. And I know for some people, they can smoke pot and it doesn't end up like having them wanting more, but it definitely did
yeah.
for Nicholas.
Mm,
Um, in college, it was obvious that things were worse than we wanted, but we were really naive. Like there's a time where he was in an accident and he hit a pole. So I mean, he was using, and we were. We just couldn't believe it. Like we were like, okay, this is the end. You've hit your
mm,
bottom. You're going to go to therapy. We're going to take care of this. We're going to fix the car.
mm,
We were really naive. Like, and he would say, yeah, like, I, I made a mistake. That will never happen again.
mm,
Um, and then, he went back to college and he didn't have a car because obviously we didn't feel like we could trust him. But he would say the right things. I'm going to my therapist, or I've joined an AA group. He had a sponsor. I don't know what the trick is to get somebody to want to get sober, but
mm,
um, the way we're doing it right now, it's crazy. Like there's so much shame, and he was so embarrassed. And when he would get caught, stealing from us or with pills, he would. It just, I mean, you almost didn't want to get upset about it because you could just see how upset he already was.
mm,
Um, yeah, I wish there was a different way for people to get sober than by having to them to hit bottom or
yeah.
do it, white knuckling it. And because
Mm,
I mean, he did try rehabs. We spent quite a lot of money on rehabs.
mm,
I'm sure you know, but like for opioids, 90%, 70 to 90% of the time rehabs don't work. They
I
lead
didn't know.
to just, yeah. And it's it's like we're just throwing money and not and praying, but there isn't a lot of success with that. Um,
Have you
so
have you got an
yeah.
answer why? Do you know why there isn't a lot of success with that? Or is there anything
Well,
where, like, if I would have known what I knew now,
now, yeah.
I wish I, like, obviously everybody listening to this is praying and hoping for answers here as well. And I don't know if you have them, but is there anything where you're like, I wish I would have known
I
that
think it's
back
a
then?
long-term solution. Yeah, I think it's like a year long. You have to go for a year. I'm in the US. Rehabs are like, for 28 days, and it's
Mm,
almost a joke. He would
yeah.
get sober, he'd be so excited, and then uh, he went to outpatient rehab, and in outpatient rehab, he got kicked out because he wasn't participating enough.
Mm,
I don't know. This is a life or death illness, and it seems to me the way that we're doing it isn't working. I know that there are lots of drugs out there that are opioid agonists, so that you can take them to kind of stave off the the um, the want for them. And Nicholas did that, and he got clean for a little while, and then his doctor was like, "Oh, you've been on for 3 months. You need to go off." It seems to me like this is just a life or death situation, so we need to treat
yeah.
it that way. And if they need to be on some kind of medication for it for the rest of their lives, I mean, I would much rather have Nicholas here, right?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
So when you found out how far into it he was, what happened then? Tell us the story.
Well, I mean, it's like the frog in the frying pan, like
Yeah.
we'd he'd come home and he'd have a lazy eyes and just be out of it. And I think he's exhausted, or I was really bad at it. And finally, once he had that accident, we realized it was terrible. And Nick and I, my husband and I, started going to Al-Anon, which is a support group for people who
Mm.
love somebody with addiction,
Yeah.
and that helped us a lot. Um, I don't think it helped Nicholas that much. He, after college, he moved home. He had a job, and when I really realized that I was dealing with a monster that I just didn't have the tools against, was I was going for a run, and I saw in our park, a park that Nicholas had played in as a little kid.
Mm.
I was running by it, and I saw his car, and he was supposed to be at work, and he wasn't at work, and he had some tinfoil and was doing um, he was just doing drugs in the park. It turns out that he had tried fentanyl, and fentanyl
Mm.
then on purpose. That's what he was doing. He ended up getting clean from that and understood like the hazards of it, and so he went into rehab and got a little bit better, and then somehow he decided that he could take benzodiazepines and his Xanax. He got a doctor who prescribed him, you know, Xanax. And after he passed away, my husband went to his apartment, and he came home with this trash bag full of empty pill bottles, and they were all prescribed. I don't know why I was saving them, but um, yeah, I I feel like I feel like the system was set up against him, and he didn't get a lot of breaks. So
Mm.
yeah,
And to me, also holding on to all those empty pillboxes, I almost feel like there's a part of him that wanted someone to see that, but also
mm,
that shame of wanting to hide it at the same time. It must have been such a push-pull situation for him
yeah,
emotionally. So let's talk about that shame because I honestly wish that a lot more people would be open to talking about things that are so important to talk about. And again, I'm so grateful for you to be here and
oh,
to
you're
talk to me
so
about this
sweet.
topic because thank you. Because I really feel that because of the shame that a lot of young people are like under this heavy blanket and they don't know how to get out of it because there's so
Yeah,
much
they can.
judgment. And then there's also the expectation because I am the teacher's child and I'm supposed to be so perfect and I'm this and that. And I'm absolutely certain that this expectation didn't come from you, but it comes from society. There's so much
And
expectation and
yeah,
judgment. Yeah.
I just, I wish that I could get to every young person who is dealing with addiction and tell
Yeah.
them that this is life or death. And I think Nicholas at the end knew that it it was life or death, and he was, how you lie to yourself, like, well, I'm taking these prescription drugs, these are prescription, you can't die on a prescription. Well, you can, and just
Mm.
because it's a prescription doesn't mean it's not addictive. And I think
Yeah.
I know he knew that, but you know it's just a terrible monster. And
Mm.
I think my family felt a lot of shame about it. We didn't talk to people, we didn't tell people, like, oh, Nicholas is struggling with addiction. At Christmas time, when people would want to come over or have us over, it was like we had this extra family member of addiction, and
Mm.
it was embarrassing.
Wow.
What did we do as a family to leave
Yeah.
this pill-sized hole in our son? I In Al-Anon, I got a sponsor who is a lovely person, and she used to say, "I want you to go out on the street corner with a sign that says, 'My son's an addict, and I love him.'" And I was like, I could never do that. You know,
Yeah.
I kind of bought into the Instagram of like, I want everyone to see that we have a great family. And what's
Mm.
so funny is we did have a great family, and Nicholas still was a great kid. And
Mm.
that addiction didn't take any of his beauty away.
Mm.
And before he passed, like we got to do some family therapy. I don't know how helpful it was, but he said, I know you guys are embarrassed of me. And he said, I'm a piece of S kid. And
Mm,
we're like, you're not a piece of crap.
mm,
Your addiction is making you do things. And we still are proud of you and we still love you.
yeah.
And yeah,
It's almost like it's
I,
two separate people, right? There's
oh,
one that, as you said, it's this extra family member, and I've been very adamant about from when the kids were really little to not talk about them being someone or something, but doing things that I don't really like when they do that. It was never
that's
about
beautiful.
them, it was the behavior. I think it's really important that we separate the behavior from who the people actually are, because I feel and I know for a fact that all of us, no matter if addiction or not, can come into situations where we do or say things that we're not proud of, that are not
Yeah.
great, and add addiction into the room, that would make it so much worse. So
Yeah.
I would love to know, Katie, how did you then deal with the shame? When did you decide enough is enough? I do want to talk about this. I want to talk about it openly. I want to write a book about it. We come to
Yeah.
talk about that in a minute. Um, I really want to salute you for going that extra step and now talking about this, because I feel that this is really needed.
Oh, you're sweet. Um, well, once Nicholas was gone, the probably the first few days, I mean, it's unimaginable, but I also was mad. I was like, let this be the last one. If you
Mm,
look at the data, the year Nicholas passed away 2 years ago, 80,000 people in the US overdosed, which is equivalent to one commercial jetliner going down filled with people every day. And the
wow.
only reason that we don't talk about that is because there's so much shame. All
Mhm.
these families are just like, please don't see us. Please, please don't
Yeah.
notice. Um, and I don't want there to be another one. And
Mm,
I want people to know who Nicholas was, that he was a beautiful, amazing, sweet kid who deserved a better life.
mhm.
Um, there are a lot of parents that I've met in grief groups since Nicholas passed. I knew that my husband and I mean, having Nicholas gone led to kind of a life or death situation for us. Like, what's going to keep us tethered here? And so we
Yeah.
started joining support groups. And I can't tell
Mm,
you how many parents we've met who haven't told their family members that their child has passed because they're embarrassed, or
wow.
just are living in dark rooms. I mean, I we go on a lot of support groups and Zoom, and you see these people who are won't turn their lights on because they don't want you to see their face. And I get it. Like I felt that way the first few
Mm,
days. I was like thinking about the people who were passing by in the street who knew. And I was like, they're probably pointing us and like, oh, what did
mm.
they do? And that's a convenient story, right? Oh,
Yeah.
addiction is caused by the parents. And if you want to believe that, that's not you personally, but if the people who
No, no,
were
no, I get it.
passing by wanted to
Mhm.
believe that, fine. Like if that's what gets them through the day, fine. But I know really that addiction is, part genetics, part
Mhm.
um, societal, maybe part parents, and
Mm,
I'll take my part in it. But let's everybody
mm.
else take their part. And maybe if we all work together
Yeah.
and are honest about it, maybe
That.
maybe we'll change.
Exactly
Yeah,
that. Yeah. Oh,
yeah,
that just gave me goosebumps all over my body. I love that you said that,
mm,
because it's like maybe if we all work together, because the one part here that doesn't want to take responsibility is usually society. And it's so easy for people to judge when they walk past, like, your
yeah,
son's been doing drugs or your son's been doing this.
yeah,
I sometimes don't want to know what my sons are doing when I'm not there. I mean, I
yeah,
do want to know, but you know what I'm talking about. It's that whole I'm a mom of two boys. I've got an 18 and a 16-year-old. I know they're going out partying. I know there's alcohol and drugs, and yet all I can do is keep educating them, keep talking to them about it. I
Yeah.
can't keep them. It's so hard to say this, but I can't keep them safe forever. I
No.
can't just lock them up to not partake in society out of fear. I always feel like if I do whatever it is that I do out of fear, it's already wrong. It has to come from
Yeah.
a space of love, it has to come from a space of trust. And all I have is trusting in the connection that I have, the conversations that we have. And because of the work that I do, I'm constantly surrounded really heavy stories. So sometimes I
Mm.
feel for my boys because I then always come to them and be like,
Yeah.
I have this podcast today. I want to talk to you about this. But at the same time, it starts with conversations, right? If you and I wouldn't be sitting here
Yeah.
having a conversation, then I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of people are listening to this right
That's
now.
yeah.
I just don't know what the ripple effect is. I don't ever know, but I know that there always is. There always is a ripple effect. And
Yeah.
I always say, if I
Yeah.
have this podcast just for one person, I'm already happy. We've already done our job. So coming back to society, it's so easy for people to walk past and go like, oh, look at them, they don't have their together, they don't, that family, whatever. And we thought
Yeah.
she's a teacher, and there
Yeah.
is so much
Yeah.
expectation on every level, and it instantly comes into judgment. And I'm like, okay, so what's your part in it? What do you do as part of the society to not act like that? Because you're part of the problem just by your
Yeah.
reaction, just by your
Yeah.
thinking, just by your thoughts, by your judgment, you become part of the problem. So I have learned one thing, and it's still work in progress for me, but through all the years that I've been working in mindset coaching and now in grief, when I judge, and I wish I wasn't, but we are human beings, we do judge,
We
right?
do. Yeah.
So when I catch myself judging a situation, something, someone, whatever, I have learned to instantly go like, ooh, where am I doing that? Where am I doing that? Because, we don't judge things that we don't do at some level ourselves. So I
Yeah.
bring it back to me. And I think, and I'm not saying like, oh, I'm the angel, all learn from me, but it's just an idea that I want to put out there. If you catch yourself judging someone or something, then just maybe, have a look in your own heart. Where do you do that? It's usually the reflections that come out where I'm like, oh, okay, maybe I haven't done a great job doing this or that, whatever. But when we don't start talking about topics that are usually heavy and uncomfortable, like grief, death, people feel so uncomfortable about this. If I go to a party and I meet people that I
Mhm.
haven't met before, so what do you do? I work in a space of grief. Oh, there's that instant drop.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, how did you
Yeah.
get into that? My husband died. Whoa, even deeper. And I want to share this very quickly because I think it's really valid here to bring that in. I did a live video just the other day about exactly that. I said, imagine instead of going like, oh, that drop in energy that you feel in a room instantly, and then people like beep, 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 they just disappear and go into the
Yeah.
next room. I'm like, that's such an icebreaker, not. And I said, how about if people could react in the same way as if he was still around?
Mm.
When you said, um, how many kids do you have? Three. One died. Oh, rather than, oh, that drop in
Yeah.
energy is like, tell me about him. What was his name? What was he like? And that would make me so happy because, when you think of it as when you're grieving, grief is already heavy enough. You don't need to add sympathy as well because sympathy is such a heavy emotion. So when you add
It's
sympathy to
terrible.
grief, it almost makes you drown in some
Yeah.
situations. So my shout out is always like, why don't you just ask me about him?
Yeah.
Ask me about his name. What did your husband do? What did you do as a family? What was he like? Isn't that the most beautiful question rather than, oh,
It is. It
my
is.
condolences. It's not helping me. Your condolences are not helping me. But when you say, oh, okay, tell me about him. What was his name?
Mm.
I'm not expecting you to be happy about it, but as soon as you drop, I
Yeah.
drop because then I feel now I'm responsible for helping
Yeah.
you out of your
Taking
sadness.
you.
And I'm like, oh, yeah. So,
I just joined a writing group, and
yeah.
um, and the woman said, let's introduce ourselves, talk about, what you've written. And
Hmm.
so I thought, oh, I don't know these people. So I put in the chat, my name's Katie Rizzo. I wrote a memoir about losing my son to addiction. And,
Hmm.
everybody introduced themselves,
Hmm.
and the woman said, let me go over here to the chat. She read it out
Hmm.
loud and she said, I'm so sorry. And I thought she was saying sorry to me, but she wasn't. She said, I'm so sorry that I didn't give you guys a trigger warning. From now on, guys, you got to do trigger warnings for stuff like this.
Whoa, oh my God. This is
And
so wrong.
I
I
know
mean,
Al-Anon
yes,
teaches,
trigger warnings, but seriously, that is there's no
it's my
acknowledgement
life,
of
right?
you,
I'm not
right?
a,
Oh,
and I'm not a trigger warning, but so
mm,
I was so embarrassed for a moment. And I thought, you know what? Al-Anon teaches me, how free do I want to be? And the answer is free. I don't want to be resentful. Like, I don't
yeah.
have energy for this kind of craziness. So I'm really trying to just like, okay, it's an example of not seeing me for who I am, and
Mm,
let it go, because I didn't
yeah,
like go into detail. It's my
yeah.
life.
I'm gobsmacked. I've got nothing to say. Seriously, I have no idea how somebody can be so insensitive.
It's probably fear, right? Like
I was
we
just thinking that
we
there
react.
must be
Yeah,
something in her life that
yeah,
has triggered that and that made her say
yeah,
that because yeah.
yeah, yeah.
I know we are already over time, but I do want
Oh,
to
sorry.
bring no. That's
Okay.
me being the bad host. I should keep time, but no, I'm not because when I'm in a conversation, I want to make space for it. I want to talk about your book. You have a
Mhm.
book coming out on the 6th of October.
Mm.
And there will be a pre-order link coming soon. So if you're watching this live, please come back in the next week or two, and we'll be adding the link for the pre-order in the comments below, because I can only imagine people dealing with similar topics right now. They're probably really wanting to read your story, read your book. Tell us about the book, please.
You're so sweet. It's called The
Mhm.
Trimesters of Grief, and it's mostly a memoir of the 9 months after missing Nicholas. Um, it's kind of how I sat down and looked at grief and how it mirrored pregnancy, and it was
Mm,
kind of heartbreaking, but also kind of beautiful, which grief is. It's heartbreaking and beautiful, right? Like,
yeah,
uh, and
I agree.
at the end, at the end of my 9 months of kind of carrying this grief, I read something by Nick Cave, who lost 2 sons, and he
Hmm.
said that he had to ask his grief to leave his body. And so that was my delivery of grief. And
Oh,
so I kind
wow.
of detail all of it in my book. But one thing that I found that was really important to me was that I'm not going to let go of Nicholas. And I've
Mm,
spent a lot of time writing poetry, which is something
yeah.
I'd never done before. Um, and I found that to be a really helpful outlet for me to kind of not just keep him alive, but kind of feel him. And I don't know, I've listened to some things that your podcast, and
Hmm.
I've listened to how you have had people on who have had felt signs from their people.
Hmm.
And I definitely do feel him close,
Hmm.
and I feel signs from him that way.
Hmm. I love that. You want to share one? You don't have to.
Oh, a poem or a
Yeah, if you
sign?
want to. I actually asked for a sign, but yeah, whatever you
Okay,
prefer.
well, I can share a sign.
Sure.
This is kind of, I have a few, but here's a heartbreaking one, and that is that his urn, if you flip it over, this is a trigger warning, but if you flip it over, it says when he was cremated, and he was actually cremated on my birthday.
Oh,
So, isn't that interesting? I
wow.
know.
Wow.
Yeah. But another sign just recently is I was on a podcast with a really good friend, and she said, "Oh, I have to go back in and edit out the man's voice when he came in and asked how much longer you're going to be." And there wasn't any man in my house. And I was like, Mary, you
Oh
have
my
to
God, I'm
send
having
that to me.
goosebumps.
I know.
Oh
And
my
she's like,
God.
no, what, the man. I was like, there's nobody in my house that day. Like,
Oh
so
wow.
yeah, so maybe there is a little sign from him.
Yes. Did she send it to you
She
or not
hasn't
yet?
yet. She's like, but
Oh
she was really creeped out. She was like, there's no
yeah.
way. Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God, this is beautiful. Oh,
Yeah.
Katie, I
Yeah.
wish I had another hour to sit with you here.
Oh, you're so sweet.
And I'm just gonna put you on the spot. Maybe I'm just gonna have you back in October when your book is
Please do.
out. But
Please do. I
for
would love it.
everyone listening, thank you so much. Seriously, thank you for having the courage and the heart to sit here and talk so openly about it, because this is not anyone's life, this is your son. And for you to step out and have the courage to share here, I absolutely love you for it. Thank you so much for spending this half an hour with me and sharing about your family. The book, The Trimester of Grief, is coming out on the 6th of October, and there will be a pre order link coming soon. So if it's not in the comment section while you're watching this, please come back in a week or two and you'll find it. But yeah, maybe you'll come back in October and share a little bit
I would love it.
about the book, and we talk again. So thank you, Katie,
Thank
for
you.
being here and
Thank
sharing
you.
about Nicholas and your beautiful boys and your family. This is
Thank you.
Katie.